So President Trump is not backing down from the radical left, which includes that activist judge who issued an order to block the Trump administration from deporting TDA gang members. Well, earlier today, they deported them anyway. Now, in case you need a refresher on how bad these people are, listen to this story.
And on the topic of TDA, I've been investigating and tracking just one Venezuelan migrant over the past couple of weeks, a suspected TDA gang member in Chicago. Pedro Colmenares was ordered deported in 2022 under Biden, yet he was arrested and released 3 separate times in Chicago. ICE tried to get a hold of him, but Sanctuary Cook County denied a detainer, and he was just arrested a 4th time. He is a murder suspect, and he was arrested recently for kidnapping and sexually assaulting a woman.
Now, you just can't hate the media enough because this is how they see this entire thing. It sums up in one sentence. Trump seized on the TDA gang during his campaign to paint misleading pictures of communities that he contended were taken over by what were actually a handful of lawbreakers. They don't even have the balls to say the TDA gang member. They definitely don't have the balls to say illegal migrants. They call them a handful of law breakers. So everybody at this point definitely has the same question. How is it that an activist judge can issue an order like this and control the executive branch? Well, here's one perspective on that.
We already have tools that are available to remove undocumented violent people from our country. And so the idea that you want to go into a zombie law, this is kind of like what we saw in Arizona when they decided to revive a zombie law around abortion. It is the fact that we can't trust this administration to actually use a scalpel, but instead they love to use a butcher knife on things. And so giving them this wide latitude to just kind of go across and just claim that anybody is anything is wrong. And so we do have courts, we do have processes, we do have laws, and we should just go ahead and use those. There's a reason that nobody else has decided to go back until into Adam's times in order to try to find ways to make sure that we can keep our country safe.
All right. Well, Jasmine Crockett claims we already have the tools to remove violent illegal immigrants. But why weren't they enforced under Joe Biden? Can she answer that question? Also, under Joe Biden, violent criminals were released back into the communities instead of being deported, like Chicago, right? The story you heard at the beginning of this video, he was released back into Chicago 3 times. And for the record, Congresswoman, President Trump is not reviving a zombie law. He is enforcing law and order. Now, before we get to what the former acting ICE director had to say about all this, let's watch a clip where it shows the TDA gang members landing in El Salvador, which is technically defying the judge's orders. And President Trump did thank the El Salvadorian president as well by saying this: these are the monsters sent into our country by crooked Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats. How dare they? Thank you to El Salvador, and in particular the president, for your understanding of this horrible situation, which was allowed to happen to the United States because of incompetent Democrat leadership. We will not forget. Now, here's what Secretary Marco Rubio had to say about all this. We have sent 2 dangerous top MS-13 leaders plus 21 of his most wanted back to face justice in El Salvador. Also, as promised by the president, we sent over 250 alien enemy members of the TDA, which El Salvador has agreed to hold in their very good jails at a fair price that will also save our taxpayer dollars. The president of El Salvador is not only the strongest security leader in our region, he's also a great friend of the U.S. Thank you. And the Vice President, J.D. Vance, said this: there were violent criminals and rapists in our country. Democrats fought to keep them here. President Trump deported them. Now, this is him responding to the Axios article that stated that the White House says it ignored a court order to turn around 2 plane loads of alleged Venezuelan gang members because the flights were over international waters, and therefore the ruling didn't apply to senior officials' tell. And that's where it is being reported that Trump defied the judge's orders. And of course, as expected from Democrats, this is what they say: so much for the courts stopping them. And her excuse to that, when she responded to Tommy Lauren, was it wasn't proven that they're all gang members. Plus, if the Alien Enemies Act allows for this, that's why the judge ordered them to stop the flights. I want gang members, criminals out. Not sure why the Trump admin can't spend an extra 5 minutes and do it the right way. What I don't understand is you guys refused to do it the right way over the past 4 years. And now that there's a president in the White House that's willing to get it done, you want to cry about every step that he's taking. That's not going to work.
Well, it's another situation where a judge has really taken on the role of sort of the executive branch. And I think the judge's defense would be, well, we're just stopping this so the merits, it could be heard on the merits, because once these people have been removed, they never would have a chance to have it heard on the merits. But it does concern me when they're turning flights around and things like that that create possible safety issues. But I think one of the bigger points here is the whole reason we have this problem is because the Biden administration admitted these gang members into the country and put them on temporary protective status, and they wined them and dined them while they were here. And you know, some of the results of it are Laken Riley and Jocelyn Nungery, which we've talked about a lot on these shows. But it really is a disgrace, because this is the only way they can deport them, because some of them have status because of the Biden administration, even though they're gang members. So, you know, the Biden administration created this problem, this emergency, and the Trump administration is simply trying to protect public safety and national security here.
Now, the most interesting thing about all this is that Democrats are choosing to basically, in the eyes of average Americans who are not in the weeds of politics, defend TDA gang members. That's how they're going to come across. Out of all the fights that they could pick with President Trump, this would be the wrong one. This is where he is strong in. Public opinion overwhelmingly supports getting these people out of the country. They don't care how it's done, as long as it's done. And for Democrats, that's not what they're focused on. They're not focused on results. They're focused on criticizing every little step that the Trump administration takes and speaking in terms where everything they say is based on a scare tactic. Let me show you an example. Here is Andrew Weissman on MSDNC saying this.
Well, there's very disturbing reporting in the New York Times just this morning suggesting, not concluding, but suggesting that that may in fact have happened. And that Judge Boasberg, the trial court judge who issued this temporary restraining order and said, you can't remove people. And he also said, to the extent that their planes in the air, they need to come back. You cannot remove people because I'm finding that this is improper. It's unclear at this point whether, in fact, that order was complied with. The doomsday scenario for this country is the idea that you would just ignore a court order. At that point, there is no rule of law in this country. Yeah. You're a law of the jungle. So that's a thing to keep an eye on as to whether that, in fact, happened here.
Now, did you know that the IRS is the largest collection agency in the world, and it just stepped up enforcement for 2025? So if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, do not wait for the IRS to come after you. Simply avoiding your tax troubles is the worst thing you can do. Getting ahead of this is the smart move, but never contact the IRS alone. Turn it over to the team at Tax Network USA. Now, why do I say that? Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS. This means that they know which agents to deal with and which ones to avoid. Also, Tax Network USA has proven strategies that are designed to settle your tax problems in your favor. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, their attorneys and negotiators have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. So talk with one of their strategists. It's free. Stop the threatening letters, stop looking over your shoulder, and put your IRS troubles behind you once and for all. All you have to do is call 1-800-958-1000. That is 1-800-958-1000, or visit tnusa.com/Devori, or hit the link in the description below. All right. Well, there's a couple of things you guys need to know. When the judge said that the airplanes needed to turn around, he did not write that in his official order. He verbally said it. So is that an actual legal demand that the Trump administration needs to meet? Technically, no. It more would have been a courtesy. That's number one. Number two, talking about doomsday, especially when it doesn't become reality, is going to continue to lose voters for the Democratic Party. And I'm not complaining about it, but I don't understand why they do that. They go to the extremes. Is that there's three branches of government. Can somebody remind them of that? And here's what Jim Jordan had to say about what Congress is trying to do in order to push back on this.
This is why the American people support what President Trump is doing and are fed up with these judges. Now, we took some action a couple of weeks ago in our committee. We said these federal judges, these district federal judges who issue some kind of injunction, some kind of hearing, or some kind of decision, I should say, that decision should only apply to the parties of the case in that respective jurisdiction, not have nationwide implications. So that's a step we took in committee 2 weeks ago to help deal with this problem. And we're willing to look at everything else as well, because the American people are fed up with the judge in Timbuktu, California, saying something that then applies to the entire country.
And, of course, the entire country now will have to watch to see if these hardened criminals or these alleged Venezuela Trinidad members, gang members, are going to be back on the streets in our big city.
Now, let's be honest. We need to see Congress truly keep their word on this, because I told you they got to catch up to President Trump. He's doing his part, but will Congress do theirs? How long will it take for them to pass a piece of legislation? How long will it take for them to pass into law things that are going to support what President Trump was doing? Because if they fail to do that, it's going to get derailed. He can only issue so many executive orders. And so while President Trump is taking action to keep America safe, Democrats are still pushing the same talking points that you heard throughout this entire video, that by President Trump doing this, he's actually hurting American citizens and making America unsafe. So it brings me to the question of this video. Why do you believe that Democrats are choosing to fight President Trump on this particular issue? We know that TDA gang members have been wreaking havoc. We know about Aurora, Colorado, and what happened there, and also across the nation, like Lincoln Riley and other individuals who have been murdered, sexually assaulted, etc., etc. So given all that information, what logical sense does it make for Democrats to fight President Trump on this issue? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Now, I believe the Democratic Party lacks logic right now and common sense, because this morning numbers came in a new poll that shows that Democrats have hit rock bottom, basically. The approval rating is a 30-year record low. And guys, the reaction to that is something that might surprise you. So if you want to check out that video, all you have to do is click on it, because it's coming up right now.